either one, or either the final one, or I think I commented back on the last images that you put up for the totem. Yeah.
Yeah, you did. You did.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, for the final one, so I talked about thinking about using tea leaves for weaving
Hmm.
to like weave them. Um, I was thinking because I remember when I was like young, I used we did this for like I don't know at the Polynesian Cultural Center or something, and then we'd weave like fishes, like these small fishes.
You'd
I don't
weave
know how.
fishes. How did you do that? Like live fish?
Yeah. No, not live
I'm
fishes.
not
Like
live, but how did you do that?
just like you like make the tea leaves into like strips.
Oh, oh.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, 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 and then you weave it accordingly. Yeah,
And make woven fish from the tea leaf.
make woven fish. Yes, yes, yes,
Got it.
yes.
Got it now. That sounds cool.
Yeah. So I might do something like that. Maybe I don't know, like I was just thinking doing that, and then I do have a fish tank with live fish, so I think it'd be kind of cool if like it was if like I made fish and then it sat in the fish tank.
Yes.
Because then it's like there's like live fish like swimming around, but also like these like not real fish like in the tank as well.
Yeah. How
So yeah,
big is
but I feel like that's so simple though. Like I don't know.
this could be tremendous, but I need to ask you a few questions. So,
Okay,
how big is your tank?
it's 75 gallon.
75 gallon. Okay. So,
Yeah,
and it's totally an indoor tank.
indoor.
Uh,
Yeah,
yeah.
freshwater.
So, yeah. Okay. Oh, so what kind of fish?
It's just a bunch of like variations of cichlids.
Uh-huh. At
Yeah.
first I
So
was,
we just
yeah, sorry.
no. Go ahead.
I at first was, I jumped immediately to thinking maybe it was a koi pond or something.
Oh no. It's
Okay.
not.
Yeah, that's fine. Just so that I have a better understanding of what I might suggest. I think the idea of connecting a sculptural version of fish in with an actual tank of live fish is a very good idea. And I'm saying that because it's connection both in terms of the symbol that you create of a fish and it's with real fish. So there's that connection. I think that the I mean you could play. You mentioned Polynesian culture in the beginning, so you could
Yeah.
connect this in a cultural way as we relate to fish, but also specifically how the Polynesian culture connects with fish.
Mm.
You know, and so
Yeah, yeah.
there's all sorts of things there. There are folklore tales and stories that you could work from as inspiration and interpretation. Um, there, just all sorts of things there. I think it's a really good initial idea.
Okay. I was kind of thinking of it like it kind of is similar to the Nevelson box in a sense because it is like a box and then I could like place the fish like in a like use that like how we use like depth and like all that kind of stuff
Mhm.
and use like place the fish in that certain like a certain way, in the tank.
So, like you're creating a new environment for the fish to swim in, right?
Yeah, almost. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Again, I'm just um, so I guess the first thing is we don't want to introduce any kind of object or anything that's into the water that
Yeah, I was gonna kill him, right?
yeah, yeah. So
Yeah, yeah.
you know all about that. So
Yeah.
I'm just reminding us. Um, the other, if you feel like, well, sorry, let me stay on one track. I'm excited about this. It's a good idea.
Yeah.
Um, you could be, in fact, creating a sculptural environment for the fish to swim in, so that the objects that sculptural environment is actually symbolic, it's metaphoric, it's, you know, it's related to, let's say, a cultural tale or a folk tale or something that relates to fish, and maybe even possibly those specific kinds of fish. I mean, that's one direction. Now, the other possibility is that I can't actually, the objects I want to use or I have available, I'm not sure if how that would affect the fish. And so I don't want to put them actually in the tank. So now you could be talking about creating an environment out around it where the tank is a part of that environment. So now you're almost thinking architecturally or interior design kind of things. So, you know what I'm saying now?
Yeah, I see.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, you know, I'm sure you've seen it like in different clubs and stuff. They have these huge tanks that are a part of a wall, but we've got,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's maybe an overblown version of that, or an extravagant version of it, but it's still creating that environment where the fish tank and the moving, living fish are a part of a bigger scene, a bigger environment. So you can go that way too. So one way was bringing the environment into the fish tank, and then this other way now is bringing the tank as a part of this bigger environment. And now we're talking about another natural, I mean, we're extending this idea of earthworks in a different way, where now you're bringing in a living thing into the earthwork. So it's not just working with, I don't know, leaves and dirt and whatever, but now we're also incorporating, thinking of it in this bigger, more expansive way, where it's working with living things. So it could be a kinetic sculpture in that sense because they're moving.
Yes.
So I guess I'm throwing out all sorts of possibilities here because I think this, again, has a lot of excellent possibility with what you can do, the directions you can go. So I think that my suggestion right now is to not necessarily settle on one, unless you've done this already, but just jot down some notes. Well, let's see, I could go this direction and push it as far as you could go, and then take another version of it and jot that idea down and extend it out in just writing or note taking how that one could go, you know, and try, I don't know how many, maybe 3 or 4, and before you actually settle on one. Okay.
Yep, sounds good.
Okay, I really like the possibility here. That's cool. Well, welcome the rest of you. So Kane and I just started, and I started talking a little bit early. He was testing out his audio, and I was telling him I've moved to a different spot outside. I've taken over half of my garage and made it my Zoom spot now. And I'm not totally sold on the idea yet. Some part of it I like being out here in it. Part of it, when the landscape guy next door starts up at the same time, it's not so good. But at any rate, that we just started a little bit early. So what I did this morning, and I'd like to do with you guys, is just to go around and if you could update me with where you are on either finishing up the totem project or the final project or both. As much as you can give me an idea of where you're at, what you're doing, that'll be a huge help to me, and then hopefully I can be a help to you in return. And then I want to also remind us a little bit of how and what we need to do to finish up the semester in a good way. Okay, so does anybody want to start, or do you want me to just pick somebody? Grisha, you were on second, so how about you start us out here?
Okay, so with the totem project, I'm mostly done with that. I kind of like made it's not that pretty yet though, but I felt like I feel like there's some structure there because I put the clothes in like a braid and then I like kind of roped it around the it's like a lamp and then it kind of comes off of it too. So I'll get you a picture of that actually, but it's in my mom's room so I can't go there right now.
Okay.
But with the earthworks though, I'm actually just completely lost. Like I really like when I saw the assignment, I was thinking of the stone things in Land's End because
Yeah,
I
yeah,
really like those the projections.
yeah.
But I just there isn't really like a lot of space in my house. Like we don't really have much of a backyard or anything. So I just don't know what organic material to use besides like all I have access to is like leaves and not really much space, I guess.
Hmm. Yeah. Okay. Well, let me maybe comment a little bit on finishing up the totem first and how that may help all of us, and then maybe a comment or two about what right now is becoming almost it's seeming like an insurmountable problem with the earthworks because you might not have a big backyard. So with the totem, um, yes, if you can send me some kind of picture, that would be fantastic. If you upload it to the drafts folder, then for those of you that have done that, I don't, I give short comments there, pretty short little comments. Um, and it's mostly about that then when we talk, I have an image in my head that's more accurate because sometimes I might start trying to help you here, but I'm not really seeing it in the same way that you've started it. So I might start going off in a different direction. And you're thinking when you're hearing those comments like, yeah, that doesn't really work for me. But it can largely be because if I don't have the most accurate versions of what you're doing that are possible, then I might not be as helpful as I'd like to be. So if you can send me a picture, that would be great. You can just send it there to the drafts folder, and, and that will work. Okay, and you can send as many as you want. You don't have to wait till something's finished. It could just be, well, these are the materials I'm planning on using, or this is the spot I'm thinking of working, or these are several locations I'm thinking of. Any of that is really helpful for me because then I have a sense of how you're thinking. Okay, so yes, please do that. With the final project, this week, starting this week now, I'm changing the way I'm going to talk to you a little bit. I've been trying to encourage us as much as possible, regardless of where we live, to try and approach this last assignment the way I wrote it. Starting now, because I think that you've been thinking about that, even if you're finishing up the totem or other things, it's been percolating in the back of your head. And if at this point you still feel like I just don't know what I'm going to do, I live in an apartment in the city or a small house in the city. I have no yard whatsoever. We're supposed to stay at home. What am I supposed to do? And so what I'm going to do here on this, if you are in that situation, then I'm going to give you an option. And that is you can do any version of sculpture. And I would mostly think that would be some version of what we've done already. It might be a carving project. It might be a modeling kind of thing. It might be an assemblage kind of thing. So with that in mind, if you want to switch to not an earthworks kind of project, but some other version of sculptural project, that's going to be okay with me. I just ask that you let me know that you're going to go in that direction, and that's going to be okay. And then when we do make that, then I will try to, I guess, direct you a little bit better or more specifically with whatever you decide to go there. And again, it would be helpful to me if you let me know what kind of materials that you do have that you think that you can work with. So let me give you an example of that first of all. Let's say that you really like the carving project, but you don't have any wood that you can work with, and even if you did, you don't have any woodworking tools to work with that. What can I do? Well, as a carving project, it doesn't have to be in wood. So some of the easiest things that you might have accessible, hopefully you all have a bar of soap. and that you can work with that. You can actually, you carve the bar of soap. So the same requirements of trying to make it interesting from all angles, and I might even still have the requirement on there of having, no, I'm not going to have that. It doesn't necessarily have to have a hole in it, but you can see the advantages that having to put a hole in the wood sculpture brought to the game. So it's up to, so it's up to you. And again, this is just an example of a carving project with something that you might have. And I can do that, I hope, with any version that you might choose to do if you feel like you absolutely cannot do the Earthworks one.
Okay, thank you. I will brainstorm about that then.
Yeah, that's kind of it. The brainstorm on that, both in terms of, first think of it not restricting yourself to, well, I don't have those materials, but just think of what kind of sculpture process maybe that we did that you liked the best. And then from that point, then we can talk about, well, let's see if it's possible to do. Okay. And the other thing I should mention is, of course, the 4 kinds of ways that we did sculpture are major categories, but it certainly doesn't mean that's the only ways that sculpture have been done or can be done. For example, you might decide to do an electronic sculpture. You know, it's with lights and sound, that kind of thing, like an installation kind of sculpture. And again, I guess I'm using clubs as an example today. So we see examples of that kind of thing in the club a lot, on the entertainment side of things. So I'm gonna. Is that enough to get you a start?
Yeah, no, that's definitely enough. Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
Very helpful.
Okay. Great, Bridget.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Juliana, how about you?
For the totem, I'm still like putting together the structure. Like I have like a couple ideas I've been playing with, but I've been thinking a lot about what you've been saying about how like you should be able to tell the idea even without the painting of it. You know what I mean? Like I should still be able to convey that story just by the form. So
Ideally, yeah. You're absolutely right. Ideally.
And then for the Earthworks, originally before you like said the alternative assignment, I was just gonna go to like school, and I know you uploaded a picture of like one that people made out of like sawdust, and you know how near like the physics building there's like tan bark. I was just gonna like borrow that and like make it on the sidewalk and then like sweep it away. But now that you say the alternative assignment, I'm thinking like maybe I'll do it out of paper. Like there's a strategy of like I guess origami that I used to be into in elementary school, and it's basically you make like little pieces of, you fold the paper into like pieces that can be stacked, and then like I could stack them together. Usually people would just put it into like a sphere, but I want to see if there's like a possibility of using those like like Ryan has.
I'm sorry. You're in my upper right-hand corner, and he's my lower left. So I wasn't seeing him.
But yeah, that pretty much. But then also, I'm not exactly sure if I would be able to make something that's like more abstract, because all the patterns I've seen thus far of that seem like quite rounded and like regular. But I think I could make do, because it's basically just like basic building blocks.
Yeah, so we're going to call that cell structure. And we could also call it lattice. You know, are you familiar with lattice theory in physics? Yes, I thought you might be. And so this would be a way of tying perhaps another, actually two other interests. This very early kind of interest in a version of origami, and then more current in understanding or exposure to this idea in physics. And so I'm bringing those both up because the challenge here, which I didn't mention with Grisia, but the challenge with this is to try to push beyond what you've previously been able to do. If we were talking about doing research in something, you know, it's always about, okay, well, I'm going to research something in physics, an area of physics. So I'm going to look into, well, what do they know so far? Or who's been experimenting in those areas so far, and what have they learned? And then they've gotten to a certain point, and they've left us with some questions. So you're going to take one of those questions, of course, and try and push it further, and not necessarily with the sculpture, but in that area of physics. So what I'm suggesting here is look at maybe your previous, we'll call them experiments in origami, and your previous experiments in, let's say, a physics class. And that's now provoking your thinking about, well, what ifs possibly, or I wonder what would happen if I did that, or can I do the cell structure thing and end up with a non-regular polygon kind of object? You know, so those are just things. And if it doesn't have a practical purpose, that opens it up for us to just deal with the form. Now, on the other hand, you might also approach it from a practical standpoint, saying, I want to create a new thing that allows me to do something, and I'm going to make that thing using this cell structure through origami kind of approach, and we'll call it a prototype. Maybe the thing, if it were really going to be used, has to be made out of a different material, but I don't have that right now. So I'm working through just the form of what it would look like, how it would be put together, that kind of thing as a structural step, a prototype step of innovation. So again, I'm trying to toss out a couple different directions here for you. I think that the, and I need to come back to something you said early on. That you brought up the point that we should ideally be able to tell the meaning of something just by looking at it. And that's an ideal. To be honest with you, I think that it's like a good mystery where it provokes us, it tells us something, it gets us piqued our interest and pulls us in, but doesn't necessarily tell us who done it on page 1, right? But it's pulled us in, something intriguing about it, something about the way it's worded. So in our case, we're talking about a visual thing. So something about the way it looks attracts us and wants us to find out more. And we look at it, and with the last two projects in particular, they're supposed to have some symbolism in there, but what if I don't recognize the symbols right away, or I don't know what they mean? But I can still, by looking at them, realize they're symbols. And so that would be the equivalent of an intriguing part that pulls me in, and now I try to, I don't know, decipher the code, or it's that kind of thing. It might even be enough, or that it's, well, they look like ancient symbols, or they look like symbols from a particular culture or for a particular location. And that's what draws me in again. That's part of that storytelling quality. So it doesn't have to be a story that somebody without explanation totally gets the whole story, but it's the drawing into it. And in fact, if they took the time, then the whole story would in fact be represented there, or a good feel of it, right? But it doesn't mean that I have to get all of it right away. It just has to be enough to, oh, what is this about? We want that kind of quality.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
And then wait, I had another question. You mentioned like soap carving, but would there be any way to like attach multiple bars of soap together? Just because I think if you tried to carve like one bar of soap, that would take like extreme finesse.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, I don't know if you've ever seen soap on a rope. Oh, okay. Well, that used to be a thing way back when. And there's also jokes about soap on a rope. But essentially, a bar of soap that had a hole drilled through it and then a cord that was through it. And so you could hang the cord around your neck, take a shower, and the bar of soap was always right there. You weren't dropping it. It was, so that was, I guess, its practical purpose. It's a very oddball thing, right? But I'm bringing it up here because you could, drill a hole through a bar of soap and thread something through it and attach another one. And then each of those bars of soap, in fact, are carved into different things. But now, let's say I've strung together 6 bars of soap that are all different things. Essentially, that could be a totem.
Mhm. I see.
Yeah. So that's one way that just comes to mind about how we could put them together. Now, on the other hand, maybe the way I carve them, they're like a 3-dimensional puzzle. So this piece fits physically into the other one,
Oh,
you know,
okay.
and maybe,
Yeah.
getting back to the cell structure thing, maybe they are each different, but they're each based on some kind of systematic way of carving. So I can take this piece up here with my hand right there, and I can attach it to this one, but I can also take that one that's over there and change it out because, so they have that modular approach.
I see. Interesting.
I kind of like that one.
Yeah, that's cool. I haven't thought of it that way before.
And bars of soap, of course, unless they're handmade ones, which you could do, they're pretty much all that same rectangular shape. But of course, you go into different stores, and I'm sure you've seen bars of soap that are cubes, or spheres. So they can be any shape. And that might take you off into thinking, oh, well, you mean I could cast my own unit of soap? Yes. And does it have to be soap now? No. It could be wax.
Mm.
So maybe I'm carving a candle. Okay.
Yeah.
That help a little bit?
Yeah. Thank you.
Sure. Ryan, since we already got a preview of what you've got going there, or maybe you just had that.
Oh, no, I just had that.
Oh, okay.
I used to be into it too.
Okay. What's it called?
I have no clue. It's just some type of origami.
Julian, did you know the actual name of it?
I don't know. I'll search it up right now, though.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna move.
All right.
to class too.
While she's looking it up, Ryan, why don't you tell me where we're at?
So the main thing around my totem is I need all my boxes from just when I'm moving. So I have not gone out the boxes yet, but I do have like the idea down and everything I want. So it's just getting all the materials for it. I was kind of really stuck on the earthworks too, so I may just go with the alternative project.
I was thinking of you a little bit because early on you described that pretty thoroughly to me.
Yeah.
And that would be. It's definitely harder than it needs to be, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So
I like the soap carving, but I also have a lot of clay from the bust.
Yes.
So do some with that too.
Okay.
Just need to think of something.
Well, you did a nice job on the clay one for sure, and you could now take from what you've learned from that, and do a different one. I think the armature idea, hopefully that makes sense now how that all happens. It doesn't have to be complicated, but you can make an armature out of a variety of things if you don't have wire. But I think like a coat hanger wire works really well. you know, and you might not. Well, I can't remember. Did you take your clay sculpture with you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you cut it off the base by any chance? Or does
No.
is yours a bolt that holds it on the little turntable?
Check.
It's called modular origami. by the
Modular
way.
origami. Oh, okay, very good. Yeah. There's a professor at Pacific, Chris Goff, who's in the math department, and he did a number of things with using origami to help visualize mathematical properties. But he also, I was absolutely amazed. Do you happen to know him, or did you have him at all?
I think I've heard the name, but I've never had him now.
Oh boy, is this your last semester?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Because I was going to say, if you had a chance, if you like any of that, and any of you that do, take a class from Chris Goff on that. It's really amazing. Modular origami. Okay. So, is it a screw or is it a bolt?
I don't think it's screwed. I think it's just like I don't think it's screwed in.
So on the bottom side, you
Mhm.
can see a nut there if it's bolted on.
So the one that I have, it's like you have a very like small little like gap. So I don't see how you'd be able to get a bolt in there unless you like have the whole thing taken apart.
Well, I guess what I'm talking about is originally there was either a bolt standing up
Mhm.
through the wood, and there would be a nut on the bottom that's screwed up there that holds it on.
Mhm.
Or some of the other ones, because I was in a hurry, you just took a big screw like from the piano and screwed it in. So
I think it's that.
you think it's that?
Yeah.
Because if it was the bolt, see, you could just take the nut off the bottom and
And you just take the whole thing up. Yeah.
and you could put it'd have to be a different bolt in that same hole.
Yeah.
Not a big deal, but if it was there, it'd make your life a little easier if you're going to go with clay. But you certainly could have a coat hanger you could bend into an armature. To stand it up, though, to work with, let's see. I suppose if you just happen to have a piece of wood that had a hole already in it, that you could do that, that would be great, but it'd be pretty much a chance thing. If you had to make something as a base, I suppose you could possibly use a cardboard box, but you'd have to put something inside the box, like fill it full of, but you don't have a bunch of sand or dirt. But anything that could weight it down, to
Mhm.
weight the box down, and then you could poke a hole in the box that just the coat hanger wire can poke into. But it can't just poke in and just sit there like that. It has to go down in the box and twist together underneath the layer of cardboard. I think that could work. It's not going to be as sturdy as, but I think it would be enough to get.
Mhm.
And so once you get that part worked out, I think the challenge for you is what I was trying to describe a little bit earlier, is how to go to the next step. You know, you're not necessarily going to make the same kind of sculpture, but you're using the same material. But think about, well, what did you learn from doing the first one that you can incorporate in making a second one? I don't know, even better, I guess. So it obviously does not have to be a caricature of a thing. It could be. It could be a human face. That if we were in class and we were doing those kind of sculptures and we were going to do more than one, that would be our next assignment. We'd do a real human face.
Mhm.
You don't have to do that, but I'm just tossing that out. And let's see, what else can I say? You can't have a whole bunch of clay though, so you can't get real big, right?
Oh, I was just gonna take apart my old one.
You're gonna take apart the other one because you've got good.
Yeah,
Oh, okay. Then yeah.
yeah.
Well,
I
if you're
could probably
gonna
just take that apart.
actually, if you're going to do that, then you can stay right on the same screw.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Okay. Do you have any thoughts on what you might like to try and make?
Not yet.
Okay. Okay. So that's another thing you need to brainstorm about, and then you can email me or whatever some thought.
Mhm.
Okay. 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 Good. Sorry. Sorry. Let's see. Riley, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. How's your project coming?
It's coming along. I'm almost done with the Totem project, and I haven't even thought about the final one yet.
Okay, well, your totem project was coming along great. So, any updates on the different pictures or?
No, I don't have any pictures. I don't have any updates really either.
Okay, I lost your video. Did you turn it off or did something happen?
Yeah, it's turned off.
Oh, okay. um, uh, I don't know what to tell you here. Can you post some pictures to the Canvas site for me?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay. Okay. Cool. So do you feel like you have a good plan of how to finish up the totem?
Yeah, I hopefully it'll be done this weekend. I have a final on Thursday that I've been studying for, and so right now that is my priority.
Yeah.
And so hopefully I'll submit the pictures by Friday or even Thursday,
Okay.
or the final pictures. I mean.
Yeah. It's actually, you mentioned that it's one of the reasons why I have us go into finals week, because I know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That way you guys can, again, you've got your priorities, so you can finish those, and then you'll still have a few days to finish our projects up. So to make that happen well for all of you, you probably have discovered by now that you can't. Well, I'm doing this subject now from, I don't know, 2 to 4 or whatever. I'm doing this project from 4 to 6 or something like that, and that doesn't neatly work for art and sculpture. So what you have to do is kind of have it percolating in the back of your head, kind of nonstop, and take notes with it off and on, even though you're concentrating on something else. Something pops into your head or you see something. Jot that down so that when that time period does come where, okay, now I can work on that you're not starting from totally zero. But you're starting with some thoughts that you've already had in mind as directions or possibilities. So you don't start with the, I guess, the brainstorming or what materials can I use stage. So that would be one suggestion, to keep that. It's kind of an ongoing process, I guess, even though you're primarily concentrating on something else in anticipation, right, of the time. All right, so the earthworks you mentioned, you're not really sure where to go on that one, right?
Yeah, I appreciate how you're letting us do a different sort of sculpture. I'm kind of in the same situation where I'm in my apartment in Stockton and I don't have a lot of room or a lot of space, a lot of things. So.
Okay, all right. So do you have, I mean, you had some good projects too, and the ones we did while we were still in class. Is there one of those processes you want to come back to or something different?
I like the idea of soap carving, and like Ryan, I have a lot of clay left over as well from the modeling.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to throw this out too. I didn't talk about, I kind of said soap carving just off the top of my head. I can't believe. I mean, it absolutely works, but it was kind of just off the top of my head. But now that we're talking about it more things come to mind, especially since both you and Ryan mentioned that you have clay with you. So one of the things that you could do as a means of going to a next step, next level with this stuff, is to combine. So you could have clay where you're modeling, and you have the soap where you're carving, but you actually use both together. So you have a carving part from the soap, and you have the modeling part that's coming from the clay, and they are designed to come together to be a part of the same overall piece in the end. Now, when we do that kind of thing, it can present a different kind of issue, like we had in the Nevelson box, where you have the materials that we're using come from a variety of different sources, and so to unify it all, we have to find a way to unify it all. The way that we did that in the Nevelson box was to paint it all one color. That's not the only way to unify, but it does mean that typically when we're combining materials, different materials together, that we do need to find a way to unify. And again, a single color is one of those ways to do that. It is not the only way by far, but you have to think about unifying. When we stick with one process throughout, that usually isn't an issue, because we're using the same material throughout, and we're using the same approach to using that material throughout. So the underlying unifying thing is pretty much built in. We don't have to think about it so much. But when we combine different things together, we do.
Okay, that's an interesting idea for sure.
Okay. Okay, and then actually it could be, found objects plus carved things. Yeah, okay. Let's say, for example, okay, I've got out in my garage, I've got this bird cage that I had a bird when I was a little kid. I no longer have the bird, but I still have the bird cage. And it happened to be this very interesting bird cage. So I carved some birds out of soap, and that's what's in the bird cage. So now it has some version of that. But then I can take it further in terms of the storytelling aspect. So there's, do you know the book, the novel, Why the Cage Bird Sings?
No, I don't know that one.
That's a classic book. It's one we should all know, independent of this. But at any rate, there's a lot of different novels and books out there that have used a bird cage as a symbol for some bigger kind of issue, some bigger kind of question. So Why the Cage Bird Sings, loosely, I'm not going to give you the whole story of that book, but loosely it's about slavery and prejudice and those kinds of issues. And so I'm bringing it up here, not that you would necessarily use it in that way, or even that you'd use a bird cage, but that these other objects, how they can take on a symbolic kind of nature. So I was talking about that a little bit earlier. I need to return to it a couple times today, because that's a major aspect of not only the Totem Project, but like a primary objective of the final one, whether it's the Earthworks or it's a substitute, alternative one. Okay, so as we're picking objects, processes, think about what they can do in terms of provoking a story or provoking a symbolic meaning.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Let's see here. I can't tell who's hiding under my other screen. Is it Rosa? I can't tell.
Yeah, it's me.
Rosa. Okay. I can only see the top of your eyes.
Yeah, my laptop's kind of
Can
facing
you turn
upward.
it down slightly?
Sure.
There we go. There we go. Thank you.
Okay. So regarding the totem, I'm set. I'm done with it.
Okay.
I just need to take the pictures and upload it, then do the little essay on it.
Okay.
And I think I want to continue with the idea that I kind of told you about last time with the whole bird thing.
Yeah.
I'm gonna see if I can try to do with, like, the rocks, the leaves, sticks, whatever I have. If not, maybe I might do it with some other material, but I really like the idea itself.
Okay. I love it. I like it when someone says they like an idea and want to work with it. That's excellent. Let's see. Before I forget, let me return to your comments about the totem project here for a sec. So one of the other things I need to remind us all today is that because we aren't meeting as a group, then I kind of added these other two little assignments of two little papers, two little essays, and they aren't long, and they are similar in length as the comparison paper we did about the first two projects. So these last two little papers are like that in length. They are not necessarily comparison papers. They could be with something else, but if you compared them together, you would still need to do two papers. So I'm not necessarily suggesting that you compare the totem with the earthworks, but you might compare the totem with earlier projects, and you might compare the earthworks with the two earlier projects. You might do that as a way to organize your thoughts. So I just wanted, basically I'm reminding us of those two things that are out there in addition to the projects themselves. Let's see. I'd like and so your totem you said is finished. And,
Yeah.
Okay. And you haven't had a chance to upload the final pictures of that though, right?
No, but I should be able to upload them today.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay. So for all of this, one of the things that I really haven't talked a whole lot about, I guess a little bit when we first started, when we were taking pictures in the studio, but when you should kind of do this with your camera all the time, but when you're taking a picture of a subject, before you hit that button to take it, really look around in the viewfinder and see what else the camera is capturing. And in the case of taking a picture of a sculpture, it's a very focused thing. You're trying to get just the sculpture. And I guess the other way to think of it is you don't want anything in the picture that isn't helpful to us understanding the sculpture or us understanding the subject. The totem and the earthworks have another little aspect to them though, and that is their location. So they're site specific. So we do need some pictures that show just the sculpture, if possible. And we also need some that show the sculpture in its location. So the real formal terminology for that is in situ. And so we want to see how that sculpture looks in its environment. And then is it in contrast with its environment? Is it complementary to it, and vice versa? Those kinds of things. So that should add to the storytelling symbolic nature of things. The exception to that on these two projects is that you guys are stuck at home. So you might have a location that would be, the location. You've been there before. Or, my sculpture would look great if it was on this spot, but I can't go there now. So in your paper, you want to talk about that because you can't take a picture of it. You might upload a picture if you happen to have a picture of that location separately because you've been there before and send it along to help me understand the location you're thinking about. But if not, just write about it also in your paper. Okay? And I guess my main point, back to that for a second, is that when we are taking photographs, whether of a sculpture or our best friend or whatever, be conscious of not only that subject, but also the things that are out here on the edges, the fringes that are also going to be a part of that picture once you click the button. And if it doesn't matter that it's in there, fine. But can you compose it even better if it's going to be there? Or, I really don't want that thing in there, so let's move a little bit to the other side so it's not seen, or something like that. Or zoom in a little bit, whatever it takes. But do be conscious of everything that's going in the picture frame. Let's see. Is there anything else I can comment though about your earthworks idea?
Well, I was thinking as well to, you know how I told you I wanted to do the bird and then kind of like something in the bottom that represents earth and stuff.
Yeah.
I was also thinking of doing the other what you might call it, symbols such as water, air, and fire,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of just like putting it in there as well. But I don't know. Like for fire, I was thinking maybe getting like leaves and maybe painting them to look like fire and like kind of just, you know, put them in there. But the others, I'm still not pretty sure. I don't know. I don't
Okay.
know if I'm gonna go with it too.
Okay. Well, you've given me an opportunity to throw another word at you guys. So with symbols, we have a variety of kinds of symbols. We have, we've talked about the idea of cultural symbols and things like that. But we also, within any of those, we have things that are called indexical symbols. Okay, so we have analogies and everything else. But indexical symbols is the one I want to talk about right now. So you mentioned the idea of fire.
Yeah.
And we could say all the other elements as well. So we're going to be okay there until we get to air.
About that, I was actually thinking of maybe showing in the bird, like, you know how when the air is like rushing through, there's some sort of sign, whether it's on clothing, it goes this way. So kind of showing the bird in like specific direction, maybe something like do something to the bird that shows air.
Excellent. You just described an indexical symbol. So it's something that shows evidence of the thing that you're trying to communicate. It's not the thing, it's the evidence of it. So and the one I always give, because it's so easy, is I'm on the beach. Nobody there is right now, but I see all these footprints there. So I know that people have been there, and a lot of people have been there, even though I see no other person except myself right now. So, and I can even tell which direction they went, if they played around, if they went in straight direction, if they were a big person, a small person, if they were barefoot, if they had boots on, if they had tennis shoes on. I can read an awful lot from that indexical symbol, which in this case is a footprint. So in your case, you're talking about, well, I can't make air and have it visible. I make things that are evidence of air being there. And in your case, it's evidence of air being blown, as in wind. And so I guess the other part now that gets into this is consistency across a system. So if my system are the four elements, earth, air, wind, and fire, and I make three of them actual visual representations of the thing, and one of them an indexical symbol, it's not unified. So I need to try and keep all four of those things represented with the same voice. And if one of those things is virtually impossible for me to represent, and it's an actual thing, and I have to go indexical, then it kind of means, for the sake of consistency, I have to represent all four indexically. Follow that one? Okay, so, and it's for the sake of unity. So it's the same voice, same visual voice here is what we're talking about. Whether we put those labels on them or not is kind of irrelevant, but But this consistency and similar visual voice would be the things to hang on to there.
Mhm.
Okay. Now, the other thing I want to mention is you have a lot of very good ideas on this project. And so as you work through the beginning stages, and I know you have been already, think of what is the overriding story that you want to say, or what is the overall message? And then that may be a big clue for you to know what to keep and what not to use on this one. Because the danger here is, well, you have so many good things that putting them all together, they might in fact weaken the overall message because it's hard to, right? So if you are clear in your own mind, the single most important thing, all of them are important, but there's one that I really, really want to be the major one, then if that means, oh, I absolutely have to have the 4 elements in there to do that, put them in. But if it's that, the 4 elements are a cool idea, but I don't need them to really emphasize the thing I'm trying to, then maybe don't put them in. Okay, so
Okay.
it's a way of helping you to visually edit. And that's a typical artist problem. Very typical. Artists, you have all of these different things and you want to get them all in there. And the result sometimes is that it's just simply too confusing. So that simplicity, that distilling down to the heart of the matter, that is, I think, an important thing here. Okay. Now I have to argue the other side. The other side of it is telling something that is perhaps too, and I'm going to use the word simplistic now. Not simplified, but simplistic. Simplistic means it hasn't been fully thought out. Simplistic means that it is not enough there to really tell the story or to tell it in its completion or to tell it with a real higher level beginning than elementary version. So then it's simplistic. That's different from simplified. So simplified is when I do brainstorm all the possibilities, and now I do what I described a minute ago and trying to distill it down to what's the necessary part. So it's process oriented.
Okay.
Okay. And I had to go off on that because I hear so many different people, not just students, different people use those words interchangeably, and they do not mean the same thing by any stretch. They're quite different. Simplistic is actually a negative term. Simplified can be a very positive term. You want to go for a second. Okay, did I miss anyone? I kind of jump around a little. All right, so did anybody, another question or comment maybe from what I mentioned to everyone? Anything come up there you want to share? No? Okay. Then maybe just a few parting comments as repeats. Please upload any kind of images of works in progress, materials you might be thinking of, any of that to the drafts folders. You do have this option of doing an alternative final project instead of the earthworks if you would like. Then in going that direction, I think it's even, I don't know if it's more important, but yeah, I think it is more important that you give me some visuals early on so that I know how to respond. And don't forget about our papers. And maybe that's most of it. I think you guys all have good possibilities here. Okay. Alrighty, I'm going to let you go. Continue to stay safe, and I will talk to you next time. Okay? Okay. Bye-bye.